We're just a little ways down the trail and found lots of our most common native fern, which is a sword fern. We're going to talk about that first. So here's a sword fern right here, very prominent large leaves. So this entire portion of the fern, from the tip up here all the way down to its base, would be considered a leaf. And you can see it goes all the way down here. It's a little bit spiky down at the base. And each of these smaller leaves would be considered leaflets. And the stalk or the stipe runs through the whole thing, this middle portion of the leaf. And one of the things that's distinguishing about the sword fern is the fact that these leaflets are attached to the stipe only by a small connection. So you can kind of pull them back a little bit, and this is where the sword fern gets its name. This little portion of the leaf right here looks a little bit like the hilt of a sword. So you can kind of see that. This is in contrast to a similar looking fern that's also a native fern, which is a deer fern. So if you were to just glance at this with its nice big leaf right here, you would see some superficial similarities. But one thing that you can test to see if they're the same thing is you try to separate those leaflets like we just did, and you can't. They're attached. These leaflets are attached all along their kind of width there to the stipe. So you can't separate them. They don't have that little hilt like the sword fern does. So that's one big difference. Otherwise, they can look kind of similar. Sword fern get pretty large. Deer fern usually stay pretty compact. But sometimes if you just see one of the leaves, it's hard to tell that. Another couple things about the sword fern over here is you can kind of see these little fiddleheads emerging right now. So these are the new growth from this year. Sword ferns are evergreen, so these older green leaves will have persisted all year. And you see some dead or dying leaves down below here. These are older leaves that if you have these in your yard, you can clip them back, and the new plant will continue to grow. Another cool thing to look for on the sword fern, on the underside of the leaflets, you see these individual sorus structures. They are the cluster of spores that will pop open when things get dry and will release the spores to find hopefully a new home to germinate from. So you can see the pattern of those sori all along the leaflet. It's pretty regular with even spacing. That's one way of identifying a different fern, is by the pattern of those sori. So that's one thing to look for. Not all leaves would have them. The newer leaves wouldn't have them. So let's look at our deer fern here. So this is a younger, newer leaf, and I'm not seeing any yet. But if we look at other leaves, we might see some more.